Salutations and welcome, friends, to another episode of Amalfi Sports. I'm your host, Matthew DeSantis, and today we are previewing an exciting day at Del Mar that features the Win and You're In Grade 1 TVG Pacific Classic, along with a slew of other graded stakes races. But before we get started, just wanted to let everyone know that thanks to all the positive feedback we've been getting from the blog posts, the video previews, etc., we will be launching a podcast specifically for horse racing called The Win Place Show. You can get all your weekly previews there, as well as interviews with the people that I have from across the horse racing industry. Now, don't worry, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll still be able to get all of this great stuff on YouTube. But listen, sometimes you might not want to see my face or my little cap, and you just want to listen to me. And on the way to work, the way to the track, you want to pick up a little bit of information. It's easier just to plug in and listen to a podcast, and we're going to have that for you. Like I said, we have interviews with people in addition to these previews this coming week. Be on the lookout for an exciting preview, an exciting interview, I should say, with Acacia Courtney from Naira and Fox Sports. Had a great conversation with her. She couldn't have been nicer and really provided some wonderful insight into the way that she handicaps, as well as some of the pedigree analysis that she does up in Saratoga. So really great stuff coming, and you can watch that on YouTube coming out this week. So in the meantime, make sure to stay up to date with all of the daily activity in horse racing by following me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. I have some great giveaways coming up in the coming weeks, and you won't want to miss out on those. Finally, there are some great races at Saratoga this weekend as well. It might be very wet in Saratoga. For those of you listening out on the West Coast in Del Mar, you're probably thinking, what is rain? What is that? But yes, it is going to be very swampy in Saratoga this weekend. But Alabama and the Lake Placid Stakes really are going to be good races out there. I have video previews of both of those on YouTube, as well as picks for all of Saturday's card at Saratoga. And the best place to get that is amalfimedia.com. As always, make sure to like and comment with your thoughts on how you think the races at Del Mar are going to break down this weekend, and share with your fellow horse racing fanatics on social media. Okay, let's dive into a great day at the races where the surf meets the turf. And let's go first to race 7 on the card, the Del Mar Mile, which is a Grade 2 race for 3-year-olds and up. And let's take a look at the field for the Del Mar Mile. And I have to say, before we even take a look at the field, I always liked races that were exactly a mile. There's something I like about that. There's something very round about it. You know what I mean? And perhaps it's back to the days I used to follow car racing a lot. I used to go to the Dover Downs. I used to go to the Dover Monster Mile, and that racetrack was exactly a mile. I used to love that because you could time cars a certain way and figure out miles per hour based upon the speed around the track. It was great. I loved doing that as a kid. So enjoying and excited about the Del Mar Mile. But now let's take a look at the field for this particular race. And like I said, it's 1 mile on turf for 3-year-olds and up. It's a 6-horse field. In post position 1, you have Neptune Storm, trained by Pete Miller and jockeyed by Juan Hernandez. Then you have Hit the Road, trained by Dan Blacker and jockeyed by Florent Giroux. You have Smooth Like It's Straight, trained by Mike McCarthy and jockeyed by Umberto Rispoli. And finally, Next Shares, trained by Richard Baltus and jockeyed by Giovanni Franco. You have Count Again, trained by Phil D'Amato and jockeyed by Joe Bravo. And you have the morning line favorite Mo Forza, trained by Pete Miller and jockeyed by Flavian Pratt. So let's talk a little bit about this field. I'm not necessarily going to hit on every single horse, although it's a 6-horse field, so I might end up touching on just about everyone. But I want to start with the morning line favorite Mo Forza, coming out of that 6 hole. I have a huge amount of respect for Flavian Pratt. Anybody who watches this any amount of time knows that. I think he is one of, if not the best jockey in the country, and he's certainly the best jockey, I think, out on the West Coast right now. And he routinely goes to New York and does a good job there as well. That said, Mo Forza's a tough horse to handicap because the previous 2 times out were incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive. Ran plus 100 Beyer speed numbers both times and blew away the respective fields. But, and there's always a but when I start talking about this sort of thing, the last time Mo Forza ran was October 2020. October 2020, I barely was even living in Virginia. Lots changed since October 2020. So you've seen a massive layoff since the last time Mo Forza ran. Now, if Mo Forza runs a 104 or 106 Beyer speed number like he did the last 2 times out, then we got nothing to talk about here. This is academic because those are by far and away the best numbers in the field. However, I am always very, very skeptical about a horse that's coming off that long of a layoff. I typically think there's a little bit of rust. We actually saw this over in England with the races over with Royal Ascot, where Love was a very, very good horse over in Great Britain, had a tough time coming off a really long layoff. I just worry about Mo Forza coming off a long layoff. Has been having very strong workout numbers at Del Mar, so it's nothing in the workouts that make me think there's a problem with the horse, anything like that. In fact, it's been stretching out to 7 furlongs in some of the workouts, which is particularly impressive. So that doesn't bother me, but still, that's a long layoff. And to go up against what is otherwise, I think, a very strong and competitive field, I just don't necessarily love Mo Forza here, especially at 8-5. Part of what I try to do is find value. And, if you just pick the morning line favorite all the time, yeah, maybe you're going to be right more than you're still probably going to be wrong a lot. You're only going to be right probably about 30% of the time, but you're going to make almost no return on investment. And so, you try to find value in these races. And I just think Mo Forza, there's a little bit of question marks there. And so I'm going to move off of that. Looking at the next 2 up, Smooth Like It Straight, Hit the Road. These are both horses that have been very consistent in recent races, turned in strong performances. More importantly, when they've got beaten, they've gotten beaten by quality. I don't mind that, particularly in something like a Grade 2 race. They've taken steps up to Grade 1 at times. They've gotten beaten by better horses, by very elite horses in some cases. Okay, I can live with that. You're taking a slight step down. You're also in some cases taking a step down in distance to a mile. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Smooth Like It Straight went a mile and an eighth last time out. Now is taking a step back to a mile. Okay. But Smooth Like It Straight's posted 3 straight 100 plus Beyer speed numbers. That's really strong. Hit the Road has been going 99, 99, 99 the last 3 times out at a mile. So again, a lot to like there from those 2 horses. I probably like Hit the Road a little bit more. I like that horse a little bit more. Has responded particularly well at the Del Mar turf as well. I like that. So I like that. I also like the Florent Giroux has been consistently riding the horse as well. So, and the workout numbers have been quite strong in terms of distance and time for Hit the Road. So a lot to like there with that particular horse. Now, the one horse that I do want to talk a little bit about is Count Again. And this is a horse that I think at 12-1 provides excellent value. This is a horse that has limited success recently, but has done well at Del Mar on the track. And I think, when it's lost, has lost to Smooth Like It Straight and Hit the Road a couple of months back at Santa Anita. Lost by a half a length, though. That was a very, very close race when they lost. So I like Count Again to have a little bit of value here. And so I like this horse maybe more than others. The speed numbers are not going to blow you away, but they're right there. It's just a point or 2 lower. Now you say, Matthew, a point or 2, that means a lot. 97s is not a 99. It's not a 100. I understand that. But I think this horse coming back to Del Mar where it's performed a little bit better, I think this horse can recapture its form a little bit. Also, this horse has, hit a 100 before, so is capable of hitting that higher end speed. And again, at 12-1, I like the value. Joe Bravo is a good jockey. Phil D'Amato knows what he's doing as a trainer. Again, when those 2 team up, good return on investment. So at 12-1, there's value there. And in a race like this, you're looking for value. Also, I'm not worried about this horse in distance. Like, this horse can go. And this horse maybe is actually slightly better at a longer distance, but still at a mile, I'm not worried. So that's kind of the way that I see this race kind of playing down a little bit. Neptune Storm is an interesting horse. 6-1's taken on a little bit of money. What I'll say is Flavien Prat had a choice between Neptune Storm and Forza and chose Forza. That should kind of tell you what you need to know, even with the long layoff, of what Flavien is thinking. I've done this with a few other races, and it's proved to be a successful strategy, is when you look at a jockey that has a choice in a race, sometimes even two choices or three choices in a race, follow the jockey. The jockeys are in this to make money. So they want to make sure that they're on the best possible horse. And if they're getting off of one horse and getting onto another, clearly they like their chances on the one horse more than the other. So I try to follow that sort of thing as much as I can. So Forza, like I said, a little bit of question marks though, because of the long layoff. So how do I see this race playing out? Well, I think I really like Hit the Road. So I'm going to go 2, 3, 6, 5. I'm going to go Hit the Road to win. I like Smooth Like It Straight to place. I like Forza to come in third. I think just knocking a little bit of rust off. And then I like Count Again to come in fourth. And so that's where I see the Del Mar mile breaking out. Again, you can find a little bit of value with Count Again. Maybe you like Count Again a little bit more. You get some value there. Maybe sneaking into a trifecta, maybe certainly a superfecta, but trying to find a little bit of value there in the race. I think Count Again is where you're going to find it. All right, so let's skip ahead to the 9th race on the card, which is the Del Mar Oaks. And let's take a look at this field for the Oaks. This is 1.125 miles on turf for 3-year-old fillies. And this is a 9-horse field. We're not going to talk about each one of these horses in the analysis, but just to run through them once. In the 1 hole, you have Closing Remarks, trained by Carla Gaines and jockeyed by Umberto Rispoli. Then Javanica, trained by Owen Hardy, and then jockeyed by Drayden Van Dyke. Going Global, trained by Phil D'Amato, jockeyed by Flavien Prat. Madone, I always have to say that when I see that horse's name. Madone, trained by Simon Callahan and jockeyed by Juan Hernandez. Feathers, trained by Pete Miller and jockeyed by Abel Cedillo. Ivy League, trained by Richard Mandela, jockeyed by Kyle Frey. Fluffy Socks, fun horse name, trained by Chad Brown, jockeyed by Joel Rosario. Tetragonal, trained by Richard Baltas, jockeyed by Joe Bravo. And then finally, Soaring Sky, trained by Jessica Harrington and jockeyed by Florent Giroux. And so this is a fascinating race. I am intrigued by this race a great deal. And you might say, Matthew, why are you intrigued by this race? Well, I'll tell you. This race has 0 early speed in it. I have rarely ever seen a race in which every single one of these horses enjoys being a deep closer. They like coming from many lengths off the pace. The only exception recently, maybe you could make the argument, is Javanica. Javanica won pretty much so wire to wire the last time out. But I should say, that's the only time Javanica has done that. Javanica otherwise likes to come from off the speed, or at least lurking in that 3, 4, 5 hole. It rarely sets the early speed. So I am very curious what the speed of this race is going to be. It's 1.125 miles. So it's not as if we're going 1.5 miles here and we're going to have a slow pace. This is just very fascinating to me because none of these horses are ridden in such a way that they're used to being on the lead, setting the early tempo. They all like sitting back and then making a run. That's going to be really fascinating. And I'm curious if it's going to end up being a really slow pace because of that. I think Javanica is probably the most likely to set the early pace. But if you look at her last race out, Javanica was not lighting the world on fire in terms of, 23-3, first quarter of a mile, 48 flat at a half. Okay. I mean, you're not killing the competition with those. You're not blazing up the track with those speed numbers. So even if Javanica takes the lead, you're not burning everybody else out at that pace. I actually think that is bad news for a horse that I would love to bet on. But I just don't see it happening this week is Madone. I think Madone is a horse that has been consistently improving, beat Glowing Global last time out. But what I'll say is that was the best race Madone has ever run, and maybe the worst race Going Global has run in quite a while. I don't see that happening again. So I also, if you look at the fractions from that last race, they were flying over a mile. 22-1 first quarter, 45-4 at the half. They were going fast that last time out. And I think that actually really helped Madone to be able to come from so far, 11 lengths off the pace, to end up winning that race because just everybody else got worn out by the early speed. I don't see early speed in this race. So I just don't have as much faith in Madone being able to close up quite as much ground, make up quite as much ground on that final kick, because I think everybody's going to have a little bit more juice in the tank because of that. So as much as it pains me to not pick a horse whose name I absolutely love, I just don't see Madone necessarily having a lot of success there. Like I said, Javanica is going to, I think, be the early speed, setting her early pace. At 10-1, sometimes you do like to see horses stay on the lead, and sometimes in turf and in dirt, that early speed can be quite critical. So maybe Javanica is a horse to consider. I'm not 100% sure Javanica, this is a step up in competition. I'm just not quite positive. I think the last time out was against lesser competition. I think it's going to be much tougher this time around. A horse that I do like, though, is Closing Remarks. This is a horse coming out of the number 1 hole, has been running very competitively to Going Global, going back, several months now. Tends to finish on the board, 8 career races, has been on the board 6 times. I don't necessarily like this horse to win, but I do like this horse to show up in an exacta trifecta. That's for sure. So there is something to like there with Closing Remarks, and also a horse that is capable of running a big number. Hasn't recently ran 2 straight 75s, but is capable of hitting that 90 plus number on the turf. So a horse that's certainly capable of having that type of big speed in the race. Now, another one of the horses that I will mention is Tetragonal. And this is a horse that I actually like a little bit more. This is a horse going off at 12-1. This is a horse I actually like a little bit more, I'll say it, than Fluffy Socks. I think who's going off at 4-1. I see these horses as very, very similar. I think there's a little bit of a Chad Brown effect on Fluffy Socks, and that people on turf just trust Chad Brown, and I understand why. Understandable. Joel Rosario, great jockey. But Richard Baltzis is a good trainer. Joe Bravo is a good jockey. More importantly, Tetragonal has been a horse that has just been consistently improving, has been getting better and better and better. Finished 3rd in that San Clemente, the stakes race with Madone and Going Global. So can stay right there. Was only a length and a half back from Madone in that last race. So again, I like this horse. I think this horse presents very good value. Granted, this is a slight step up in competition, but has run against a lot of these horses before, has run against Closing Remarks, Ivy League, Madone, Going Global. So a lot of these horses have been on the same circuit. At 12-1, I like throwing in Tetragonal to an exacta or a trifecta, or probably more of a trifecta, but you're going to get much better value there. And again, I think this race might be easy to pick the winner, but I do really like Tetragonal to add some value to your ticket. So how do I see the Del Mar Oaks playing out? Well, I have it 3-1-4-8. I have Going Global to win. I have Closing Remarks to finish 2nd. I have Madone to finish 3rd. I think going to put on a kick. I just don't think he's going to get there. And I have Tetragonal to finish 4th. And if you were to flip-flop Madone and Tetragonal, I wouldn't be mad at you. I could see that happening as well. But I do think Tetragonal is the way you're going to get value on these tickets for this week. So that is the way I see the Del Mar Oaks playing out. So now let's go to a race that has generated a lot of controversy, which is the Grade 1 Win and You're In TVG Pacific Classic. And the reason it has generated a lot of buzz is because people have been complaining that the quality of the field of the TVG Pacific Classic is not appropriate for a win and you're in tournament for the Breeders' Cup. What I'll say is this: very competitive field. Looks like it's going to be a great race. I loved handicapping this race. This is a hard race to handicap, but a fun one. Looks like a great race. The other thing I'll say is Boise State didn't have any chance against Oklahoma back in the day. Upsets happen all the time. And all of these other very prestigious grade 1 win and you're in races, they're only prestigious insofar that the morning line favorite ends up winning. Or, one of the 2 or 3 morning line favorites. If one of the long shots wins those races, I don't hear anybody complaining about that. Lexingtonian, who's a perfectly good horse, I think went off at 26-1 a couple weeks ago in a win and you're in race, ended up winning. Now, like I said, Lexingtonian's a good horse. I like it. But there's always examples of the long shot winning these win and you're in races. And hey, now they're in the big show. Good for them. So I have absolutely zero problem with the field of the TVG Pacific Classic this week. I'm excited about it. So let's take a look at this field that's generating all of this buzz. So it's a 9-horse field. Coming in post position 1 is Tripoli, trained by John Sadler and jockeyed by Tiago Pereira. Then Tis a Magician, trained by Richard Mandela and jockeyed by Flavian Pratt. Coming in 3 is Dr. Post, trained by Todd Pletcher and jockeyed by Joel Rosario. Then Royal Ship, trained again by Richard Mandela and jockeyed by Mike Smith. Then in the 5-hole, we have Express Train, trained by John Sheriffs and jockeyed by Juan Hernandez. Then Magic on Tap, trained by Bob Baffert and jockeyed by Abel Cedillo. Then you have Independence Hall, as a native of Philadelphia or Pennsylvania and southeastern Pennsylvania. I'm always a fan of Independence Hall, so I like the name. Trained by Mike McCarthy and jockeyed by Florent Giroux. In the 8-hole, you have Sheriff Brown, trained by Todd Fincher and jockeyed by Edwin Maldonado. And then finally, you have Cupid's Claw, trained by Craig Dolassi and jockeyed by Umberto Rispoli. So, how do I see this race playing out? As I said, this was a very interesting race to handicap. This was a race that a lot of these horses have run against each other regularly. And they've all taken turns winning. They've all taken turns turning in some clunkers. And so it's not easy to pick. And you can see that with the morning line odds. There's no horse that's an overwhelming favorite. Express Train is 3-1, but you have 3-1, 7-2, 4-1, 5-1, 5-1, 5-1. You have a lot of horses that are right there at around the same place. Now, what I'll say is if you're looking for value, I think Cupid's Claw is probably the horse that presents the best value if you're looking for a little bit of a longer shot to pair. Cupid's Claw ran a huge race last time out, and certainly I think represents the best value. I actually think more distance might be a good thing for this horse. So I actually think 1.25 miles will suit him quite nicely. And so I think if you're looking for value, Cupid's Claw is where it's going to be. I don't necessarily have him there, but I do think if you're looking for it anywhere, I think that's where it's going to come from. So, like I said, I have a feeling this race is going to come down to the quality of the trips that people get and early speed, which should be set by Tis a Magician and Express Train. Now, here's the thing. Tis a Magician likes to set a nice loping early pace. Tis a Magician will never be confused for a sprint horse. Tis a Magician likes to set a very reasonable 23-3, 48-2, sort of quarter and a half. No sense busting a gut getting around the track. Now, granted, Tis a Magician tends to run, at 1.5 miles. This is 1.25 miles, so things are going to get sped up a little bit in that regard. But Tis a Magician is a horse that's not going to kill you in terms of early speed. Now, On the other end, I think Express Train will probably push that early speed a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if Express Train actually does take the early lead and Tiz the Magician sits off of that. But Express Train runs a little bit faster. You're looking 22 fours, you're looking at 47 halves. So there's a little bit more there. And I think Tiz the Magician is just going to get worn out, quite frankly, at that sort of a pace. If, on the other hand, Express Train lets Tiz the Magician set an early slow pace, then that throws a lot of things into flummox. But if Express Train sets the early speed, which certainly has the capability of doing that, did that last time out basically, or was right on the early speed last time out for the San Diego Handicap, I just have a feeling Tiz the Magician's just going to get burnt out in that race. So the other horse that I'm interested in is Dr. Post. This is a horse that came in second to last year's Belmont Stakes, or Belmont Stakes. And this is a horse coming off of his best effort, has never gone a mile and a quarter. That said, I'm less concerned about that because he's trained by Todd Pletcher. Todd Pletcher routinely lets horses run out far longer than their official workouts to help build up speed and stamina. And so Dr. Post is coming off a very strong race last time out. 101 Beyer speed number, has a 104 in its past. And so if Dr. Post can run the race he ran at the Monmouth Cup, then I really, it's a horse I like a lot. And I also, the value's not huge, but at 4-1, that's not a bad odds for a winning horse if you put $20 on a win bet. So there's something there, certainly to like. Some of the other horses to consider or to at least, think about in this particular field. The horse I consider to be the X factor is Tripoli. Tripoli has had very strong performances since coming off the turf. This is a horse that was on the turf for most of its career, came off the last two times out. Distance is a concern here, okay? But has posted 100 Beyer speed numbers the last two times out, and is a horse that doesn't seem like it would burn itself out, has a lot of speed. If you look at those workouts, Tripoli has some really strong workout numbers, but isn't a horse that seems like it would work itself up in the first quarter or half a mile, is content to kind of sit a little bit off the pace. Has only ever gone a mile and a 16th before. I'm sorry, a mile and an eighth once. But again, making that transition from turf to dirt, I actually really like Tripoli quite a bit. And I think we're talking about value. 5-1 presents a little bit more value than some of the other horses in the field. So I like Tripoli quite a bit. I think that's a horse that is a little bit of an X factor. But if Tiz the Magician sets the early pace, which is not going to be overwhelmingly fast, then I think that you're going to have reasonable fractions. And I think that it really allows for Tripoli to have a strong closing kick. So how do I see the controversial TVG Pacific Classic playing out? Well, I actually have it 3-1-5-2. I have Dr. Post to win. I have Tripoli to place. I have Express Train to show. And I have Tiz the Magician coming in fourth. That's the way I see it. I think it's going to be a very, very competitive race. I like all four of those horses quite a bit. And I could see trips where all four of them might have a shot at winning. But I do think Dr. Post is the horse to beat in this particular race. So let's go to the final race of the day, which is the Del Mar Handicap Grade 2. And let's take a look at that field. And so this is a huge field. We're not going to cover every single horse. But at a mile and 3/8 on turf, 3-year-olds and up, starting with the number 1 post, Media Blitz, trained by Simon Callahan, jockeyed by Umberto Rispoli. And then Crossfire Hurricane, trained by Mike McCarthy and jockeyed by Mario Gutierrez. Red King, trained by Phil D'Amato and jockeyed by Joel Rosario. United, trained by Richard Mandela, jockeyed by Flavian Pratt. And then a horse whose name I love because I know a lot of people who do this, Master of Foxhounds, trained by Richard Baltus and jockeyed by Kent DeSormo. And then in the 6th hole, you have Masterpiece, a Chilean horse, trained by Mike McCarthy and jockeyed by Drayden Van Dyke. Then you have Acclimate, horse that's probably going to be in the early speed, trained by Phil D'Amato and jockeyed by Ricardo Gonzalez. And then you have Arklow, trained by Brad Cox, who's coming out west, traditionally an East Coast trainer coming out west for this, and jockeyed by Florent Giroux. You have award winner in the 9-hole, trained by just David Hoffsman and jockeyed by Juan Hernandez. Then in the 10-hole, you have Astronaut, trained by John Sheriffs and jockeyed by Victor Espinoza. And finally, Say the Word, trained by Phil D'Amato, who has 3 horses in this field. So he's really trying to stack the deck, and jockeyed by Joe Bravo. So that is the field as we have it. And how do I see this race playing out? Well, I would expect to see award winner and Acclimate set the early speed. What's interesting to me about both of those horses is they both are capable of going wire to wire. They've done it in the past, and they could do it again potentially to this field. It's not often you see the Rabbit, the early speed, be able to hold up the whole way, especially at 1 3/8. But these two seem to be capable of potentially doing it, and you're getting phenomenal odds on them. Now, I actually don't think they're going to be able to pull it off, but I do like them in exacta trifecta bets because I don't think they're going to fade quite the way that early speed sometimes does fade. I think in particular, Acclimate is a horse that I would expect to really dig in and show a lot of class and be able to stay right there with the leaders the whole way around. Now, there's a horse I do want to talk a little bit about, Arklow. This is a horse that ran a stinker of a race last time out at the United Nations Stakes at Monmouth. That was on the Haskell Day. And that race has gotten forgotten about a little bit because of all of the controversy of the Haskell race. But Arklow was absolutely blown off the track by Tribhuvan. And to be fair, everybody else was blown off the track by Tribhuvan. But Arklow finished a distant 4th in that race, was a complete non-factor the entire way around. Didn't have juice coming down the stretch. Going off at 5-2, I don't like it. I don't like Arklow at that price. I am all out on that horse after seeing that performance at the UN Cup, or at the UN Stakes, I should say. Ran a 94 Beyer speed number in that race. That's the weakest 94 Beyer speed number I've ever seen. So I just do not like Arklow in this field as well. This is a pretty strong field. I like a lot of the horses in this field. Speaking of one of those horses, I like United, going off at 2-1. This is a horse that when he's on is very tough to beat. Very tough to beat. Thing is, he's not always on, and recently he has been beaten by other horses. So this is something just to keep in mind. Has recently been beaten by award winner, by Acclimate, by Red King. But when he's on, he can beat just about anybody. He's beat really good horses like Smooth Like a Straight, Count Again. Horses in this race like Say the Word and Master of Foxhounds. So he's beaten very, very good horses. And like I said, when he's on, he throws up huge numbers that you don't see from the other horses in this field. And so, this is a horse that I would say, I like him a lot. I like Flavien Prat quite a lot. I like Richard Mandel actually quite a bit. So I think there's a lot to like with United. You're not going to get the best odds certainly from this horse. But still, this horse 2 out of 3 this year, turned in one poor performance at 1.25 miles on turf at a Grade 2 race. And when that's where he lost to award winner and Acclimate. But again, I just think United is a really, really good horse. And so I'm looking at value here. I would be looking at, again, pairing on exactas and things like that. I will say, Masters of Foxhounds is a horse that it has had some very strong runs, has some good Beyer speed numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if this horse ended up in the money. So there's something to like there. The horse, though, that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is a horse, Astronaut. And this is a horse that's going off at 20-1. This is a horse that is no doubt taking a huge step up in competition. But this is a horse that finished second last time out to Acclimate, beat Red King, had a little bit of issues. Actually, Victor Espinoza, who jockeyed him that day, is jockeying him again on Saturday, lost the whip, still managed to come in second. This is a horse that A horse that likes to come in second, has run 5 races this year, finished second 4 of them. Again, this is a step up. This is a big step up in competition. But I like Astronaut. I think this horse, again, ever improving Beyer speed numbers, broke 90 last time out, will certainly need to have a bigger effort this time. There's no doubt about it. But I do like Victor Espinoza. And I just think there is something there with that horse. If you're looking for value, I think Astronaut's a horse that can provide a lot of value on the back end of a trifecta. And I would not be surprised to see Astronaut hit the board at all, because that's what this horse tends to do, is hit the board. And I like horses that are reliable and in the money, even if they're at a slightly lower level. Now, like I said, there's other horses like Red King, like Master of Foxhounds. I think those horses at 8-1 provide good value to also pair in the back ends. These are horses that, again, are tend to be pretty consistent. I would say one horse to stay away from is Masterpiece. I think this is a horse you could get lulled into a certain sense of security by looking at the 102 and 103 Beyer speed numbers from several races ago. This is a horse that's on a downward trajectory. Chad Brown has given up on this horse. In my opinion, that those 100 plus Beyer speed numbers are a little bit of fool's gold. I think I just don't like Masterpiece because, and it rightfully so, Masterpiece is going off at 15-1. So it's not saying as if it's a favorite, but if you're looking for value and you're going, well, here's a horse that had, could run a huge race. Could. Big emphasis on could. I'm a little bit more out on Masterpiece than I am on some other horses. I'm even probably more out on him than I am on Arklow. So how do I see the Del Mar handicap breaking down? Well, I have it 4, 7, 10, 8. I have United to win. I have Acclimate to place. I like Acclimate. I just think that he's going to be that early speed, but I like him to hold on for a second place finish. I have Astronaut in third, and I have Arklow in fourth. If that comes in, that's going to be a huge trifecta if it hits 4, 7, 10, 8. So that's the way I see it. Like I said, United, Acclimate, Astronaut, and Arklow. Triple A's to close out the 2, 3, 4 positions. So that's how I see it for that race, and that's how I see it for the day at Del Mar. And like I said, well, that's it for the preview. I hope you enjoyed my coverage of the races, and remember to check out my blog for all of the picks on the card on Saturday, as well as my picks and preview for Saratoga on Saturday. And the only place to get those is on AmalfiMedia.com. Finally, just a reminder to subscribe to Amalfi Media on YouTube. Be on the lookout for the launch of the Win Place Show podcast. Follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace, and check out AmalfiMedia.com for all of the great horse racing content you need to get to the Breeders' Cup and beyond. Until next time, I'm Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.